Good evening once again, and welcome to Crypto Pulse Weekly. I'm happy to have you on board. I'm just trying to set up for YouTube, and then we're good to go. So, welcome to Crypto Pulse Weekly once again. Of course, this week's episode is dedicated to the lovely people of Ukraine. Let's keep them in our prayers. Some sad times, really. Sad times for the world. But let's move on. As we're here to talk about crypto today, we'll be looking at where the price of Bitcoin is going. I've gotten some requests or some questions from people during the week as regards whether we're going to. Somebody asked me whether we're going to 7K, and I said that's a joke. And the person was laughing and asking me why, and I said people are failing to understand the dynamics of what's happening with cryptocurrencies and where we are in the advancements of things in the world. And I'll come back to that when I start talking about the price in terms of price action of Bitcoin and in terms of what the outlooks look like for Bitcoin this year. But let's get started as usual. As you know, we'll talk about the market updates. We'll talk about crypto vital signs, and we'll take a bit of Q&A and knowledge transfer. So let's start with what's going on in the markets. As you all know, on Wednesday was when Ukraine got attacked. And of course, the market reacted violently, but in a very strange manner. It looks like that particular episode had been priced into the market for the past 5 to 6 weeks, because the way the market recovered shortly after was not congruent with what was happening as regards of the real issues. And one of the things I think might inform that is the fact that the response of the West, generally speaking, has been more of, we're going to impose sanctions, but the sanctions are like trying to build a dam. It's going to take a while for the effects of a dam to show up both downstream and in the place where you're damming it. So for these people, the effects is not going to be immediate on Russia. And like the president of Russia rightly said, like he claims, he has a $600 billion war chest. So what he's saying is he has enough money to finance it. Whether he has enough manpower to follow through with the money, it's a totally different thing entirely. Or I'm not sure how this is going to play out on the long run, because what it looks to me is like the country wants to essentially take over the whole of Ukraine and add it to the already biggest country by landmass in the world. If you think about it in real terms of it, it's just absurd. I don't know what goes up in people's mind. But having said that, let's move on. Let's move on from the war. I don't want to talk about the war because it's a really depressing stuff. In terms of how that's going to affect the price, I think the effect of the war on the price is already priced in. The fact that we bounced off 34K is a very strong indication that we are not going lower. And I'll show you when we get to the charts that we're likely not going lower than where we are right now. In terms of what we should expect, I don't think there will be too much of regulation in place, because I think the whole of the world is going to be very occupied with this Ukrainian war and how they're going to position to it. For those people who are people of faith, I think if you believe in God, I think you should pray, because for people who understand history, this is exactly how World War II started. Exactly how World War II started. Germany invades Poland, and then the Poland, Poland president gets assassinated. And, all the other countries were looking at them and like, okay, it's not our country. We're not going to get involved until country after country started getting involved and started getting involved. Then different countries started using the opportunity to execute their agenda. So Japan, seeing US as a threat for its expansion, went and bombed Pearl Harbor. Unknown to them that US had already developed nuclear weapon that plenty and that much at the time. And of course, they in turn went for Hiroshima and Nagasaki and literally wrecked Japan. Japan was probably the most successful economy in the world at that time. So we shouldn't turn a blind eye and think, okay, I'm in the UK or I'm in the US. It's not going to come to me. I tell somebody that this might as well be a third world war in the making, because mistakes are very easy to make. The longer the fatigue sets in, like doctors and scientists will say, if you don't get a good night's sleep, your decision-making capabilities become increasingly depreciated. So you can imagine people working this kind of jobs, sleeping or not sleeping in the trenches, and their leaders too doing back-to-back 24-hour shifts. Decision-making is going to be very, very poor. At least we know that from science. So there is room for too much mistakes and things can easily fall out. So for people that believe in any form of God or deity, I think it's a good opportunity to pray. Having said that, in the news this evening, we see that 700,000 in Bitcoin has been donated to Ukrainian army in the last 48 hours. I think that's significant. There was a particular Bitcoin address that donated $3 million in Bitcoin today to an NGO in Ukraine. Another news that was of interest to me was the global hacking community called Anonymous saying they were declaring a war on Russia. I don't want to say anything because I know that they are quite powerful, but they're not powerful in the decentralized world, if I should use that word. They're powerful in the centralized world. So hackers can drain accounts in global banks. They can move accounts, they can move money from one account to the other without anybody knowing about it. In fact, they can commit fraud and label it on somebody else. So to that effect, yes, but I'm not sure they have enough power to down to, because Russia themselves are very good in manufacturing, cyber attacks and hackers. They're probably one of the highest rated, in cyber warfare. When you take them, you take China, you take North Korea, you take Iran, then you talk about US. I know US has some capacities, but I don't think that their government infrastructure is as tight as their intelligence infrastructure from an IT point of view. So I think that's going to be very, very critical in the days to come, because as these machines, these war machines get modernized, they get more and more dependent on technology. So for me, I'll be interested in seeing how that plays out, because if it's true that they can break into, the systems of defense, then it's going to be very interesting, because it means that a warplane can suddenly down to mid-air, or a warship can suddenly shut down all of a sudden if, they do get those accesses. But generally speaking, I think it's the world has started the year has started quite tumultuous. And two things are still on the plate apart from this war. Okay, well, let me say one more thing. One more thing in the near term, two things in the medium term. In the medium term, you have the midterm elections in the US, which will, of course, dictate the balance of power in their next election. In the near term, you have the Fed interest rate. Why is it important? It's important because if the Feds raise interest, which they have to, by the way, if you've been watching in the inflation figures, then you understand that there's going to be a dry up of liquidity. But the interesting thing is that everybody already knows that. So in a way, my thesis is that just like this war was already priced in, I think this is already priced in as well in the market. And I think what we'll see is when the announcement is made, there'll be volatility, meaning price will go both ways, and then we'll continue on the trend that it has taken. Right now, I think Bitcoin has hit a local bottom. I talked about it 2 weeks ago that I think it has hit a local bottom. I'm going to substantiate that claim when I start talking about the charts today. In another news, I was saying that, yes, actually correct. I stand to be corrected. It was $4 million that was raised within 24 hours to support the Ukrainian military. I think it's going to be a bit of, it's going to be a very difficult conflict, regardless of whether, the Russian army overtakes the city capital. If you look at the landmass of Ukraine, it's actually very, very huge. I didn't know that the landmass was that huge until I started looking it up this afternoon. I was looking at it compared to even countries like Romania, completely envelopes countries like Moldova, and even Belarus. It's quite big. So I think it's a bit of a challenge. For a country like Russia that is just around the same population as Nigeria, I don't think that they have the wherewithal to prosecute and sustain. Now, there's one thing to invade a place and put your soldiers there. There's another thing to be able to sustain it. Being able to sustain it, I think, is more difficult. Just like we've seen, even with US, with all their paparazzi military power, they were never able to sustain occupation in any of the places, be it Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, or even the Vietnam War and all those places, because if the people don't want to be colonized, they don't want to be colonized. And unlike in the olden days, people now have very easy access to weapons. There is a glut, let me put it that way. There's a glut of weapons being manufactured. There's more weapons than human, of course, that's a given. But if we even say ratio 1 to 10, there's much more than that per human being on the surface of the earth when it comes to weapons. So there's always market for armed conflict. And in a case where money is becoming decentralized as well, money used to be the control of imperialists and governments. Money is now being decentralized. Like I just said, $4 million has moved hands in 24 hours just for Ukraine. And because they're getting this kind of support, it's going to be increasingly difficult for anybody to wage this kind of war in the modern day, because your soldiers will go there, yes, they will wreak havoc, but then they can't stay there because those other people will go and reinforce and get supplies from wherever. And of course, Ukrainians also have people outside their own country as well in their diaspora. So really, it's a difficult thing. But bringing back that to the price of Bitcoin, I think that we're going to see the bottom, the final bottom, when the interest rate is pronounced. It might be 2.5. I mean, it might be 0.25, might be 5% hike. Whatever the hike is, there will be liquidity grab. What do I mean liquidity grab? The price will go in a direction that seems to fake out people who think, so the price might go down and everybody say, oh yes, the end has come, and then it goes in the opposite direction and keeps going. So for people who are still worried, just need a little bit of patience. As I've said, I guarantee you that we will see a new all-time high in Bitcoin this year. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know what the price might be, but I guarantee you that there will be a price hike higher than 69K this year. My projection is 89 or 81, but who knows? There are too many things now in play that can catapult that price beyond what it already is. Countries that are already considering, moving into Bitcoin, like Mexico, Bolivia, Panama, all those countries will be watching what's going on right now. I'll be watching El Salvador. I'll be thinking to themselves, it might be a good idea to hedge our bets and just preserve ourselves, because if for whatever reason US gets involved indirectly, but they're going to get involved indirectly because they might not be saying it on TV, but I'm sure they'll be smuggling in weapons to Ukraine, because what they will be saying and what NATO and the UK will be saying to US in the background is that if these guys enter Ukraine, they're going to attempt other states, including NATO-backed states, and that they're going to begin to infiltrate them. So they will definitely smuggle weapons to. They might not say it openly, but I think they're going to smuggle weapons, and they're already giving them what's it called, anti-tank javelin missiles as well. Those missiles are wicked because it will destroy any tank that it comes in contact with. So it's quite it's a dicey situation for the world, economically speaking. If you're in UK, you observe that the price of petrol has literally doubled. US, somebody was complaining, I think was somebody on Instagram, was a comedian, was complaining that they say the price of gas is going to go to $4 per liter for the guys in the US. And the guy was saying he doesn't understand what they are saying, because for premium petrol that he already buys, he already pays more than $4, like $4.60 or something. Now only God knows what's going to happen when it becomes $4 on the average in the United States, because he lives in California, obviously. He says it's probably going to be $8. So the price of fuel is gone up. Again, not because there is no crude oil, but because I don't like to go into these explanations, but sometimes it helps because it gives you perspective on why things are happening. The price of oil is going up because there's a cabal, or there's a cartel that determines the supply of crude. Now, if they peg the supply to a particular limit over a period of time, and there's sudden demand, then the price will go up. Just like when COVID started, and everybody went to shut down. That was not an envisaged scenario for that market, and the price of oil went to negative because they had pegged that for that period, this is the amount of supply we should all contribute to the global supply. So in the same way, what is happening right now is that they have constricted the production, meaning they've reduced the production to create a boost in price, to bring back the price of oil. Unfortunately, that drop in production has been met with a lot of demand now, and this instability is going to cause a lot of problems because half of Europe, let me not say half of Europe, no, I would say France, Italy, and Germany, which are one of the biggest, or you can say the biggest economies in Europe, in EU, European Union, let me not say Europe, they are more than 50% dependent on gas from Russia. Even coal, I understand Germany is even, getting their coal from Russia. So when they're saying they don't want to implement sanctions that includes taking them off SWIFT, is because those countries will not be able to buy those raw materials from them, and it's going to create trouble for them. So really, the market is going to start moving once all this are sorted out. That's essentially what I'm saying. So when the market is sure that we've seen the amounts that the Fed wants to hike by, if they see that there's no other thing in the offing in terms of how they want to hike the price, then the market is probably just going to keep moving on. As you can see today, S&P 500 reacted quite strongly, and as I will show you now, let me just go to the charts without much ado. Give me a second. Let's change this. Yes. Yeah. So S&P 500 has been going up since literally yesterday. But it's still largely still in a downtrend. So I think this is just what you call a retracement, an upward retracement in a downtrend. For the price of Bitcoin itself, let's do some analysis. So the price of Bitcoin is still coming down from, of course, from 69K all-time high and the 45K subsequent high. The recent high that we now have, let me switch to daily so that I'll give some perspective on a larger time frame. So you can see, obviously, we're in that downtrend. We were in this falling wedge structure before now. We broke out of it. But like I was telling somebody on Twitter who was saying that things the bottom of it was in, I was saying that we have at least one more bounce, one or two more major bounces in this region to confirm that the bottom is in. I think the bottom is in because there's an indicator that I use that has switched to a secret indicator that I use that has switched to bullish for the past 3 weeks. And also the fact that the Bollinger Band touched the price at the lower end about 4 weeks ago. Then it repeated it 3 weeks after, the next week. And you can see we've taken a pump of that. If we don't go lower than 34K next week, then guaranteed the bottom is in, because what it then means is that we are making a lower high. When you are making a lower high, a higher low, sorry, not a lower high. When you are making a higher low in a downward trend, it's a major sign of reversal of that trend. So in this case, you're making a lower high, and you see indicators like this trying to come out of the oversold region. This kind of indicators like stochastic RSI. It's a good confirmation that the markets might be bottoming out. And on top of that, so we're making a lower high against the backdrop of January, and we're also making what am I saying? We're making a higher low. This thing is tongue twisting. We're making a higher low against the lows of January, and we're also making a higher low, generally speaking, against the lows of June 2021. This was the point of no return, really. Because if we had come down here and we have broken through down here, then we will very easily have been looking at a 20K Bitcoin. But like I was telling someone, it's all the characteristics of a bear market are not in. All the characteristics of a bull market are not in either. And the technical structure that everybody was talking about here, which is an head and shoulder, meaning, let me switch this to line to show it well, meaning head and two shoulders as a sign of reversal is being invalidated by this rising trend. So this is what I'm talking about. This trend has been in place since June, July last year. And right now, that trend is still being respected. Because if I switch this back to a candle chart, you see that the price has literally just bounced off that trend line. And even when it broke through, it's come back up again. So it's very, very unlikely. I don't see, even if we come as low as 35K in the coming weeks or days, I don't see us breaking below that, because one, I see some serious volume here, which has not been for a long time. So that's okay. Let me switch to daily to show you what I mean. There's a lot of volume, meaning there's a lot of people buying. So yesterday you can see there's a lot of volume here. There's a lot of volume here. There was a lot of sell-off and there's a lot of buying back. Just like you had a lot of sell-off here and there was a lot of buying back. The amount of sell-off is not as high as the amount of buying back. So it's something to watch out for, generally speaking. I will think that we'll see in the next 2-3 days, we'll see a pitch of correction downward before the price picks up again. But generally speaking, like I said, and I've said before repeatedly, I think we're largely still in of course, not I think, we're largely still in an uptrend when you zoom out. So if you look at the price, the logarithmic chart shows the real price projection. I need to switch off the Bollinger to show it properly. So it shows the real price progression over time. And you can see that over time, we've been going up. There have been, there have been ups and downs in the major uptrend, but literally the price has been going up. So largely speaking, I think that the price is about to make some correction upward. And like I said, if you look at this is what is called an oscillator, meaning it shows you when the price is oversold or overbought. For a very high time frame, like the weekly time frame, it's a very strong indicator because it tells you where the market buyers, the main market buyers really is, as opposed to 4-hour, daily and 1-hour time interval that are very subject to market manipulation and sentiment. This is a long-term thing. So it shows on the long term where the market's likely. Of course, there's a possibility that it goes up and comes down, but this shows that there is let me drag it up. Some people like to make it very big so that they can know when it crosses. So here, for instance, when it crossed, which was January, when you saw that original pump, If we don't get a dump that is significant in the coming week, it means that the price will start getting out of what you call the oversold region, which is below 20. So generally speaking, near-term targets, I would say, once the price bounces below, let me switch to daily just to allow me to show properly what it looks like. Once the price bounces below, above 30, where was this? The next bounce that we have, if it doesn't come as low as 34,397, guaranteed, we are putting in a higher low, because what it then means is that from here, even if you don't take a longer time, let me take out from here, what it then means is that we're basically progressing and going higher and higher with each dip. What does that mean for your portfolio? Yeah, I understand. Your portfolio is probably like 90%, especially if you have a lot of odds. Your portfolio is probably like 90% now. But two things that I think people should take cognizance of. One is that for the portfolio you have, this is probably the best time to dollar cost average. I know it's not, I mean, it's not a financial advice, and it's not a nice thing to do. Let me use that way. It's not a palatable thing to do, because your emotions are going to tell you otherwise. But your emotions are mostly wrong when it comes to timing the market. So, but now is really the best time. So let's say I bought Ethereum at 4K, yeah, at the peak. I bought 2 Ethereum at 4K. Ethereum is now 2,000 something. What's the price? 2,600 or 2,000, it should be around 2,600. Yeah. 2,698. So if you bought Ethereum, let's even say 2,700. If you bought Ethereum at 4K, which was at the top, 4,007 or 4,008, which was at the top in November, now the price is almost half. If you buy another one now at 2006, what you've done is you've averaged the price, and your average price now will be sitting more around 3,000 than at 2,000. If you double down and buy 2, what you mean is that your average price will go lower. Your average price will sit closer to somewhere between 3,900 and 3,220. What that means is that when this flips from bearish, meaning when it flips this, is it 100 now, 200-day moving average, and it flips the bullish end, you automatically are in profit. And by the time it goes back to the all-time high, your overall profit has massively increased. I don't know how I can explain it in the context of, 1 hour 30 minutes that we have, but basically this is one of the ways to make money in crypto without any bias. I'm currently writing a book about how to amass wealth in crypto. This is one of the secrets, for real, because what it means is that you are a dedicated long-term investor. I know that, for most people that grew up in Nigeria or West Africa, we don't have that presence of mind for long-term investments when it comes to our investment horizon. So as a result of that, we are not able to comprehend in the space of our mind why I need to wait 3 or 4 years before I cash out of an investment, before I realize profits on an investment. Because if you come from those kind of places, tomorrow is not guaranteed. It's like living in a war zone. It's what you have today that you can say you have. So people are always looking for the short game, and I understand. I understand what it means. You might have had some, plans for that money. This money I'm going to show in a few months' time when the money has doubled. But it hasn't doubled. Events has overtaken it, and the market has been dampened by so many factors. But understand that on the whole, adoption is largely growing. Just today, somebody on what's it called, on NFT or on the NFT space said that Elon Musk bought a particular NFT for 569 Ethereum just today. So things are happening in the background, and there are so many things that are popping up, even in this situation that it appears that the market is in a bearish condition. So there are opportunities that are moving around, but because people are fixated on the price of Bitcoin and what Bitcoin is doing. And I mean, some people actually feel that Bitcoin is going to zero right now. I've had people have that discussion with me that is this whole Bitcoin thing going to crash? It's never going to crash. It is here to stay. I gave an analogy during the London Crypto Summit, and I think I gave that analogy last week as well. But it's important to just explain to you the impact of that analogy. Because in fact, I heard something else during the week that shook my mind to, or on that analogy that I didn't even know was a piece of history that I wasn't aware of. And that was about the printing press. When the printing press came, it disrupted the world so much that Europe went into war for 30 years. It's crazy, but that's how powerful the disruption of the printing press was. Because suddenly, you don't have to join a cult or belong to the aristocracy or the monarchy to have access to knowledge. Knowledge immediately became democratized. And that was a problem because that was changing the power structure. So the incumbent power structure, seeing what was happening, went to war. All the crusade was made mostly because of, the printing press. It's funny, but that's what's happened. So in the same vein, this is going to change the world massively. In 10, 20 years' time, we'll be talking about it and we'll be saying, man, the world has really changed because of blockchain technology. So what Bitcoin has done was to bring blockchain technology to the fore. Blockchain technology had been around almost a decade before that time. Same with proof of work technology or algorithm. But what Bitcoin does, what Bitcoin did was to bring both of them together and thrust those technologies into the forefront. So, like I was telling people, if you want to give an inheritance to your children, you better be buying Bitcoin right now because it's going to get to 10 million. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it's going to get to 10 million. It might get there faster than, the next 8 years. I don't know. I think it might be within the next 8 years because in the next 8 years, I expect that most of the current world currencies will have reached a point of no return, and there will be need for recalibration. In 2019 November or October was when I first carried the news that Japan, the Bank of Japan, European Central Bank, Bank of Canada, and two other banks were trialing a project for central bank digital currencies. So they were to run that trial in 2021. So when they started, other countries started joining. By the last G7 meeting, who we can call the Minister of Finance, or we call it Council of the Exchequer in the UK, Rishi Sunak, similarly nice guy, goes on and says that they're going to deploy very soon, central bank, a programmable CBDC. I talked about the CBDC then. I talked about what China was doing, but China has developed it then, but they were waiting for an opportunity to launch it. And that they were going to develop the CBDC that will allow them print money digitally. There is a number of ramifications to that. On the one hand, it takes surveillance to the next level because if it's a programmable CBDC with a centralized node as the central bank, they can determine what you can use that money for. Like a commentator was saying, they can say you've had too much burger for this month, so your currency is no longer going to work for burger for this month. And it sounded very funny, but it is true because if it is the government that is issuing the CBDC, then they can determine how you spend that money. But what things like Bitcoin has already done is it has created a clog in the spanner or in the wheel, or a spanner in the wheel of those kind of arrangements. Because with this kind of thing, it does not need anybody's, it does not need anybody's involvement. In fact, it incentivizes people that support the network. And because the network has now grown beyond the level at which any single entity or even states actors can attack it successfully, the only thing anybody can do is to contribute to the network and derive value from it. So if you are thinking that Bitcoin is going to zero, I mean, like they say, perish that idea because it's never going to happen. And for my friends, some of people are saying it's going to 7K. Well, as I'm sure for this year, Bitcoin is not going to 7K. I mean, definitely this year, that's not going to happen. And many people will say, oh, then why are you so, why are you being so arrogant in your assertion? I'm not being arrogant. I'm just telling you the fundamentals because we are no longer in 2018 and we are no longer in 2017. In 2017, 2018, there were large retail investors, sharp entrepreneurs, people smarter than myself who had gotten into the space earlier, who saw the opportunity and cashed in on it. So those guys had a lot of money, made a lot of money from the bull run. And what they were essentially doing was speculating on how far and how high the price of Bitcoin could go. But in the process of doing that, they attracted institutions, and then Bitcoin started trading on Chicago Mercantile Exchange. At that point, the big whales realized that this game is no longer solely our own game. So they started to back down, and then the price started coming down. But what has happened since then is that there have been more and more and more and more increase in the adoption of Bitcoin, and that's going to increase. So whether we like it or not, this market is going to increase. And if the market is going to increase, it means your investment is essentially going to gain value over time. You don't even have to do anything about it. I want to show you something. You see, cryptocurrency and digital assets is the new land. So if you thought that buying land was the cool thing before, this is the new land. This is the new real estate, because the reality is shifting from physical to digital. Now, time will fail to tell me to tell you about what's happening in the metaverse or what's happening in the NFT space. But understand that the perception of value and what is termed valuable is shifting significantly. In the history of mankind, we've used objects as trade as barter. We've used cowries as means of exchange. We've used precious metals at different points in history. We've used commodities like clothes, like woods, special wood like cedars in Lebanon, and all sorts as a store of value or as a measurement of value. But over time, that has changed and changed and changed and changed and changed until we got to the US dollar, and that has become totally worthless. Bitcoin has provided an opportunity to create a totally new world of value, and that's what is coming. So regardless of what the price is, what we are going to see is that this new economy is going to continually gain value. I want to switch this to a weekly chart. This is a chart of the total market capitalization in crypto. You'll see that let me put it in a logarithmic scale as well, so that you see what I'm saying. So if you put this in a logarithmic scale, like I did the other time, you'll see that this value has been fluctuating, but on the long term, we're essentially in one giant long trend that has not been broken. In fact, if I were to put it this way, yeah, whichever way, we've still been in that long trend since the beginning of 2015, essentially. So let me look for, okay, there's no data. I would have said I should look for the data for 2013, but then it was only majorly Bitcoin. But the chart looks exactly like this. The price keeps going up, takes a dip, goes up a bit, takes another dip, then keeps going up. So if you look at this over a long period of time and you extrapolate this into the future, what you will get is something like this. Hold on a second. Let me show you. So in the near term, in the next 1 to 2 years, you can expect that you'll see the overall market cap to almost 5 trillion. Bear in mind that at the peak of the bull market last year, Just show you that. At the peak of the bull market last year, we were sitting at about 3 trillion dollars. So from where we are now, just purely on a technical standpoint, we're making a 50% correction on Fibonacci levels, meaning that you can expect the price to, at the minimum, double that level from where it is right now. So 1.71 times 2 is 3.42 at the minimum, which is higher than where we were in the month of November last year. So what I'm saying is the same way you have this impulse wave, this correction, this impulse wave, and another correction, you expect to have another impulse wave that will take us to at least 3.4 million, or 4 million actually, 4.8 million at the most, at least 3.8, but at most 4.8 million. So what am I saying? Now is the time to actually double down. And I know it sounds like this is just reckless talk, but it is not. The most of the money is made in the bear markets. And I'll tell you two stories. Real story. One of them is somebody very personal. I'm very close to me. It's a friend. The other person is a friend of a friend. Let me start with the story of that friend of a friend. That friend of a friend was a cleaner. And I think I've mentioned this before. It was a cleaner on the TfL. The TfL is the Transport for London, the railway management company here in London. And the guy was a cleaner back in 2012, 2013. Of course, like somebody who's migrated from Nigeria, working to make ends meet. And so one day while he was cleaning the platform where people stand to get on the train, he said he heard two university boys talking about Bitcoin and how excited they were talking about it as, this is the future of money. And because, of course, as a Nigerian person, he was always interested in money. He approached them and said, guys, what's this that you guys are talking about? And they told him what they could, and he said, he should try and buy Bitcoin. And apparently what the guy did then was he took his savings and bought Bitcoin with it. And he bought so much, he bought like 100,000 units of Bitcoin. I don't want to do the math, but you can do the math even in today's price. The person I was recounting the story said the guy told him during the 2017, 2018 bull run to buy Bitcoin, and told him why he should buy. So he told him that story. Of course, by that time, Bitcoin was averagely selling at 10K. 10K, if he sold 10,000, what am I saying? If he sold 10,000 for 10K, that was $1 million already. Is that $1 million or 10 million? The math is not working well. 10,000 is 4 zeros. 10K is 4 zeros. It's more, that's 10 million actually. $10 million. I don't know how much he sold, but what I know, the much I know about that story was the guy made so much money from the bull run that he left the UK completely. He went and bought an investor visa and settled in Canada and was just buying up everywhere in Canada. He said he doesn't even know where the guy is anymore because the guy just leveled up like 4 levels ahead and disappeared. And today, he doesn't know where the guy is. Of course, the guy is probably, the guy was saying then that he was going to keep like 60% of the Bitcoin for his children. But I'm sure he would have sold some again in this last bull run when, the price went crazy. But it's a true life story. It's not like a folk tale. It's a true life story. The other one was the person that was telling me the story and was saying that, he wasn't paying attention when the guy told him to buy Bitcoin then, but that after the bull run happened was when he came to his senses that, this is what this guy was talking about. And of course, he started, as they say, stacking the sats from there. He was, balancing his play with Bitcoin, buying altcoins, and he was partaking in all sorts of projects. And the guy lives in Nigeria, by the way. To put it in context, when it's somebody that we talk very well, when he was telling me the things he did last year, I was just totally in awe because I was like, what? I mean, for somebody that lives in Nigeria, that was very, very significant, extremely significant achievement. And it was just because, he had investments here and there, $100 there, $200 there, $300 there, $500 there in various crypto assets. And over time, they've matured. and they become very big. And the reason I'm saying this because I know that at least 80% of people on the call and on Instagram are people of West African extraction. Let me use that word. And like I said earlier on, I know that our investment horizon is usually very short, and we're very worried because the future is not guaranteed. We come from an environment where the future is not guaranteed. But what I'm telling you is that this is here with us to stay. It is going to change the way we invest. It's going to change the way we bank. It's going to change the way money is going to be transferred. SWIFT is going to be completely obsolete in the next 10 years, completely, as in dead, because it will have no value. There will be no need for you to send. Why would I want to use SWIFT to send $100,000 when I can send it in 10 minutes or less? So understand that this is not going anywhere. Secondly, understand that the correction that we have now is a fairly healthy correction. It's a deep correction. I mean, thinking about it on a longer time frame, it's a quite huge correction. It's more than, I think it should be more than 50%. It should be like 60% correction. But the overall trend, let me measure it. The overall trend is still intact. So from top to bottom now, we've done exactly 52%. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. A 52% correction on the price action is a very, very healthy correction. Like, is actually like a perfect balance. 52 is like perfect balance. 55 would have been the optimal perfect because it will be sitting between 50 and 60%. 60% is deep correction, but it's still good correction if the price goes upward. But 55% is perfect, and we're 52% so far. And the price seems to be bouncing off from its lows. I think it's a perfect correction. I think it's the time to buy. I think it's the time to double down your investments in crypto, because I guarantee you, like I said earlier on, we will have another all-time high this year. Definitely. In terms of one other thing I wanted to talk about was what's this called? Our Fear and Greed Index. It's been dangling precariously in the last few days because everybody's afraid of Ukraine and Russia. And as a result of that, it looks like everywhere is, I think I have it somewhere here. Yeah, so right now it's 27%. It was 23 yesterday. Was 30 last week, apparently, but the Russian milieu has troubled the market, so everybody's sort of upset and in extreme fear. But understand that I think at the end of the day, the market will usually recover from everything. Like I said earlier on the call, the war is priced into the price action of the market. Same is the interest rate hike. I think the interest rate hike is already reflecting itself on the price. Right now, we will probably see more of it in the month of March. But nevertheless, the short-term events that happen are just like, how do I put it? What's that word? Catalysts to where the price was already headed. So if the price was already going bad, the short-term news is just catalyst to make it, to fuel it more. So I think that's all I have to say for today. Oh yeah, I have, for people that are interested, I'm having a class on NFTs in the month of March. I think it will be March 26. If you're interested, do get in touch with me. It's going to be most likely March 26. It's an extensive class on NFT and how to get involved in NFT. Also for guys in the Midlands, we're coming to Midlands for the Manchester Crypto Summits. I think it will be in April, Easter Monday or in April for guys in Manchester. Promises to be a fantastic time. Had very nice time the last time in London. So this one is in Manchester. I think that's all I have in terms of announcements. If you have any questions on Instagram, please type it into the, what's it saying, not talking? No audio. Oh, sorry. Well, it says I'm live though. For guys on Instagram, is it working, please? Please confirm that Instagram is working. I just saw it now. They're saying no audio. Please send me a wave if you can hear me on Instagram. Oh, I didn't see that on time. Is there any question for the guys on the call? Otherwise, I'm happy to let you enjoy your weekend in peace. Okay, I think we're good. Nobody has any questions for today. No question of the day. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. See you again next week. Until then, keep stacking the sats. Have a lovely weekend and bye.
Bye, Dr. Temi. Thank you.
Oh my God, Dr. Diary. Oh my God.